Chapter 17. Narrative continued by the Doctor. The Jolly Boat's Last Trip. And the goats. Thanks very much, Green Tea. Just a reminder, still got the pole on the pole on the. God, it's really hard to manoeuvre. There, the pole. Get your votes in. Maybe we'll move the song to tomorrow's stream or something. We've got a bit more time. Well, no, we'll see how we go. Just keep voting. We need a decision. So remember, this is Dr. Livesey now. This fifth trip was quite different from any of the others. In the first place, the little gallipot of a boat that we were in, even I don't know what a gallipot is. The little gallipot of a boat that we were in was gravely overloaded. 5 grown men, and 3 of them, Trelawney, Redruth, and the captain, over 6 feet high. Oh, so they're very tall. Something to bear in mind, Mr. Carson, Redruth, Trelawney, and the captain. Was already more than she was meant to carry. Add to that the powder, pork, and bread bags. The gunwale was lipping astern. Several times we shipped a little water, and my breeches and the tails of my coat were all soaking wet before we'd gone 100 yards. The captain made us trim the boat, and we got her to lie a little more evenly. All the same, we were afraid to breathe. In the second place, the ebb was now making a strong, rippling current running westward through the basin, and then southward and seaward down the straits by which we'd entered in the morning. Even the ripples were a danger to our overloaded craft, but the worst of it was that we were swept out of our true course and away from our proper landing place behind the point. If we let the current have its way, we should have come ashore beside the gigs, where the pirates might appear at any moment. "I cannot keep her head for the stockade, sir," said I to the captain. I was steering, while he and Redruth, 2 fresh men, were at the oars. "The tide keeps washing her down. Could you pull a little stronger?" The captain, this is. "Not without swamping the boat," said he. "You must bear up, sir, if you please. Bear up until you see you're gaining." I tried, and found by experiment that the tide kept sweeping us westward until I'd laid her head due east, or just about right angles to the way we ought to go. "We'll never get ashore at this rate," said I. "If it's the only course that we can lie, sir, we must even lie it," returned the captain. "We must keep upstream. You see, sir," he went on, "if once we drop to leeward of the landing place, it's hard to say where we should get ashore. Besides the chance of being boarded by the gigs. Whereas the way we go the current, so much specific water direction language. Whereas the way we go, the current must slacken, and then we can dodge back along the shore. The currents. Oh, this is one of Squire Trelawney's servants, Gray, who we've not heard from so far. So Gray is another sort of Trelawney Downton. Whose voice can he have then? What's his name? Mr. Bates. Mr. Bates. He could have Mr. Bates' voice. "The current's less already, sir," said the man Gray, who was sitting in the foresheets. "You can ease her off a bit. I have no choice, therefore, but to offer my resignation." That's not written, that's just what Mr. Bates does. Basically every other episode, he just resigns. "My lord, I'm afraid I sneezed this morning, and therefore I have no choice but to offer my resignation." "It simply won't do, Bates. It won't do." 400 episodes. How many series did that run for? Don't get me wrong, I loved it. I loved the. It went off the boil, didn't it? Really, especially when the Duke burst. Horrible, but Come on. It's like Fonzie jumping the shark. I do. No spoilers for anyone, but at one point one of the characters just bursts. He's like, "Now look, I hope you won't think me terribly impolite, but I'm afraid I've got to. I'm feeling rather. I do excuse me. There's blood everywhere. Turns out he's got like a bad stomach or something on there. No spoilers. I won't tell you who it was. I'm really feeling frightfully. The current's less already, sir, offer my resignation, said the man Grey, who was sitting in the foresheets. You can ease her off a bit, Anna. Thank you, my man, said I, quite as if nothing had happened, for we had all quietly made up our minds to treat him like one of ourselves. What, by calling him my man? Thank you very much, horrible servant. We had all decided to be lovely to him. And a Chancellor gets to... Oh, yeah! There were loads of great Downton moments, but we won't go into that now. Maybe we'll have a Downton stream at some point. Downton chat. An IG live Downton Treasure Island crossover Q&A. Suddenly the captain spoke up again, and I thought his voice was a little changed. The gun, said he. I have thought of that, said I, for I had made sure he was thinking of a bombardment of the fort. They could never get the gun ashore. The gun, by the way, they're referring to the cannon. So you'd be more likely to refer to a ship's cannon as the guns, rather than the gun like a musket or a pistol, which it would probably refer to by the proper name of pistol and musket. And the guns would be the long guns, the long arms. Not the long arms, because the long arms are the muskets. The long guns, the cannon on board ship. So they're worried that these lads are going to fetch that not Ben Gunn, as Rowdy Polly points out. He's a completely different gun. The Guns in that regard are the family of Ben, who, as we've established, are very pious people. But we're talking about here the gun. We're talking about probably the main cannon. That's what we're looking at there. So he's worried that they're going to somehow be able to get the cannon ashore and fire it at the fortress, which would be a bit of a disaster because it's good to have a fortress, but if it's made of wood, there's not a lot it can do against a cannonball, which is a giant, often explosive ball of lead. Oh, horrible. Imagine being in a battle in those days. But you've been in a battle anyway, but with like cannons going off. And the poor horses. Deafening. The gun, said the captain. I have thought of it, said I, for I made sure he was thinking of a bombardment of the fort. They could never get the gun ashore, and if they did, they could never haul it through the woods. Look astern, Doctor, replied the captain. We had entirely forgotten the Long Nine, the cannon. And there, to our horror, were the 5 rogues busy about her, getting off her jacket as they called the stout tarpaulin cover under which she sailed. Not only that, but it flashed into my mind at the same moment that the round shot and the powder for the gun had been left behind, and a stroke with an axe would put it all into the possession of the evil ones aboard. Israel was Flint's gunner, said Grey hoarsely. Israel Hands, he's referring to there, who's with the company who've got the cannon. So he's a fellow who knows his cannon, knows how to use them, knows what damage they can do. At any risk, we put the boat's head direct for the landing place. By this time we got so far out of the run of the current that we kept steerage way even at our necessarily gentle rate of rowing, and I could keep her steady for the goal. But the worst of it was that with the course I now held, we turned our broadside instead of our stern to the Hispaniola, and offered a target like a barn door. We all follow what that means, yeah? So they've turned the bow, so the long bit of the bow is now basically like just open to cannon fire. Very bad news. I could hear as well as see that brandy-faced rascal, Israel Hands. I'm not really sure what that's supposed to mean. Sort of just a boozy. Well, it's so much horrible booze. It's just sort of seeping through his eyes. Israel Haynes. We decided he's a sort of London, didn't we? Israel and sort of East London, sort of Cockney. Cockney, South London, or East London? Red-faced, sure. Which is often a side effect of too much brandy. Israel Hands plumping down a round shot on the deck. Very bad news. Plump. So basically, Israel Hands is now got the cannon and he's just got a cannonball out. Very bad news. Who's the best shot? Asked the captain. Mr. Trelawney, out and away, said I. Mr. Trelawney, will you please pick me off one of these men, sir? Hands if possible, said the captain. Keeping his fucking cool, the captain. Excuse me, Squire, would you mind shooting one of the men on the deck, please? Thank you very much, sir. Trelawney was as cool as steel. He looked to the priming of his gun, so now we are talking about a musket. Oh no, maybe they've got a little... No, he's got it. No, cried the captain. Easy with that gun, sir, he'll swamp the boat. All hands stand by to trimmer when he aims. So basically he doesn't want to fire the gun and knock them all out of the boat. The squire raised his gun. The rowing ceased, and we leaned over to the other side to keep the balance, and all was so nicely contrived that we did not ship a drop. They had the gun, by this time, slewed round upon the swivel, and Hans, who was at the muzzle with the rammer, was in consequence the most exposed. However, we had no luck, for just as Trelawney fired, down he stooped. The ball whistled over him, and it was one of the other four who fell. Aye! An anonymous henchman, like in Star Trek, when an extra goes down with the crew, and you know he's toast. He's going to have a lizard man drop a boulder on his head. Kirk, Scotty, Spock, and anonymous crew member. That crew member is getting squashed. That's what's happened here. Dead. R.I.P. Red Tunic. Amen. The cry he gave was echoed. Ow! Not only by his companions, ow! But by a great number of voices from the shore. Ow! And looking in that direction, I saw the other pirates trooping out from among the trees and tumbling into their places in the boats. Here come the gig, sir, said I. Give way, then, cried the captain. We mustn't mind if we swamp her now. Only if we can't get ashore, all's up. Only one of the gigs is being men, sir, I added. The crew of the other most likely going round by the shore to cut us off. They'll have a hot run, sir, returned the captain. Jack ashore, you know. It's not them I mind, it's the round shot. Carpet bowls. My lady's maid couldn't miss. Tell us, Squire, when you see the match, and we'll hold water. In the meanwhile, we had been making headway at a good pace. For a boat so overloaded, and we had shipped but little water in the process, we were now close in, 30 or 40 strokes, and we should beach her, for the ebb had already disclosed a narrow belt of sand below the clustering trees. The gig was no longer to be feared. The little point had already concealed it from our eyes. The ebb tide, which had so cruelly delayed us, was now making reparation and delaying our assailants. The one source of danger was the gun. If I durst, said the captain, I'd stop and pick off another man. Of course, as we discussed the last stream, it's very difficult to reload a musket. It takes a lot of time. You can't focus all your concentration on that. But it was plain that they meant nothing should delay their shot. They had never so much as looked at their fallen comrade, though he was not dead, and I could see him trying to crawl away. Ready! Oh no, it's the squire. Ready! Cried the squire. Hold! Cried the captain, quick as an echo. The squire's reloaded his musket, and he and Redruth backed with a great heave that sent her stern bodily under the water. The report fell in at the same instant of time. This was the first that Jim heard, the sound of the squire's shot not having reached him. Where the ball passed, not one of us precisely knew, but I fancy it must have been over our heads, and that the wind of it may have contributed to our disaster. At any rate, the boat sank by the stern, quite gently, in 3 feet of water, leaving the captain and myself facing each other on our feet. The other 3 took complete headers and came up again, drenched and bubbling. So far there was no great harm. No lives were lost, and we could wade ashore in safety. But there were all our stores at the bottom, and to make things worse, only 2 guns out of 5 remained in a state for service. Yeah, you get a musket wet with water, then game over. Because the gunpowder that has to stay dry, so it can ignite when the flint clicks, spark, ignites the gunpowder. Get that wet, becomes sludge, done. Nothing you can do about that. Completely ruined. You can't have a battle in the rain. Can't have a battle in the rain. Although they did. They would have done. The doctor's gun, I had snatched from my knees and held over my head by a sort of instinct. As for the captain, he had carried his over his shoulder by a bandolier, and, like a wise man, lock uppermost. So the lock is where the flint strikes the pan, ignites the powder, fires the gun. Very good thinking by the captain. Knows his muskets. You'd hope he would. The other 3 had gone down with the boat. To add to our concern, we heard voices already drawing near us in the woods along shore, and we had not only the danger of being cut off from the stockade in our half-crippled state, but the fear before us whether, if Hunter and Joyce were attacked by half a dozen, they would have the sense and conduct to stand firm. Yes, these gardeners who are currently guarding the fort. Nothing wrong with being a gardener, just not necessarily the first profession you'd think of when defending a fort against a gang of pirates. Having said that, Samwise Gamgee was a gardener. Make of that what you will. Down at me. The fear was before us whether, if Hunter and Joyce were attacked by half a dozen, they would have the sense and conduct to stand firm. Hunter was steady. That we knew. Joyce was a doubtful case. A pleasant, polite man for a valet and to brush one's clothes, but not entirely fitted for a man of war. There you go. Oh, so Joyce is the valet. So Joyce is Mr. Bates. Maybe there's multiple Mr. Bates. Maybe they're all the ancestors of Mr. Bates. I will defend the fort, my lord, squire. I will defend the fort. And if I fail to defend the fort, I must offer my resignation. But why? Why must you offer your resignation, Joyce? I can't say. If I say, we won't be able to get 4 episodes out of me resigning. Well, I feel like it would be a simple misunderstanding that could probably be instantly cleared up. No, I refuse to enter into that, my lord. Squire. With all this in our minds, we waded ashore as fast as we could, leaving behind us the poor jolly boat and a good half of all our powder and provisions. End of chapter.